This is going to be my last video for tonight. I was laughing my ass off at this, at the contrast between one moment in time into another moment in time of one caveman governor, Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis basically heard the proclamations of scientists and people saying, dude, you're opening up your economy too fast. Your priority needs to be on getting rid of the virus, not necessarily towing the line of Donald Trump and going with this notion of basically, I'm going to open it up regardless of the situation. People told him. He didn't want to listen. I told him. He probably wasn't listening. A lot of people made the point to him. A lot of people were telling Trump the exact same thing. And with the focus, instead of being on, let's get rid of the virus and let's make sure our population remain whole and our economics base and all of this other stuff remain afloat while this takes place and we bear the storm together, that wasn't what happened. DeSantis goes out on podium to podium, shaking his fist at the sky. I told you I don't believe in this witch doctor stuff you guys call science. We don't believe in this stuff. There are no chickens and cockroaches. Look at the sky. And proudly proclaim this for Florida. I'm going to show you that video. And then I'm going to show you what DeSantis is looking like right now that Florida has basically shattered the record for the number of COVID cases all across the United States. The death rate is going up. The ICUs are filling up. Arizona has gotten to the point where they're calling for refrigeration trucks because the morgues can't take on the surplus of dead bodies. I'm making the point to you that this was already entirely understood to take place, but the people in charge were not acting rationally from the point of human health. They were acting rationally from the point of business. And even in that context, you still get it wrong to some degree because you would have been better off keeping those businesses afloat as opposed to what actually took place, which was basically a giveaway to all of these other institutions, whereas many of the other businesses basically went belly up. I'm going to show you Ron DeSantis, a man in time. Ron DeSantis in May, Ron DeSantis right now when Florida is breaking records. Welcome to the Soapbox. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys are digging what I am putting down, definitely like and share. Also, you guys can support this content through PayPal or Patreon. I'm sorry, my mind slipped slightly when I was looking at DeSantis in this video. DeSantis is standing beside Trump's vice president. Now, as these two stand beside one another in front of the White House, listen to the way DeSantis talks. Look at his cadence. Look at how he articulates, how brash, how strong, how alpha male he is in this particular interview and his proclamations. And I'm going to show you what he looks like now.
And part of the reason is that because you got a lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened. So we've succeeded, and I think that people just don't want to recognize it because it challenges their narrative, it challenges their assumption, so they got to try to find a boogeyman. Maybe it's that there are black helicopters circling the Department of Health. If you believe that, I got a bridge in Brooklyn I'd like to sell you.
Now, Mike Pence gets away with being this kind of just affable older man figure, even though Mike Pence was pretty hellish in his time in office. The thing is, if you remember at those debates, people were wondering how on earth is Mike Pence going to get through that debate with all of the garbage that Donald Trump had been saying. And Mike Pence, nevertheless, was able to get through the debate with Tim Kaine. And he was doing so just basically in this kind of gingerly old man way of just shaking his head when he said something that was true that he didn't necessarily want to engage. And people were like, yeah, that guy's not bad. That guy's not bad. That guy's horrible. Nevertheless, alpha male, yelling in the wind, There's nothing. You guys said I was going to be as bad as New York, and we're not as bad as New York. Where are your proclamations? How are these things? These things are not true. It just doesn't fit your narrative of events. Fast forward. Month. Right, this is Florida today. Florida shattered national records on Sunday for the largest single-day increase in positive COVID-19 cases in any state since the beginning of the pandemic, adding more than 15,000 cases as its daily average death toll continues to rise. According to the state's Department of Health statistics, 15,299 people tested positive for a total of 269,811 cases and 45 deaths were recorded. California had the previous record with 11,694 cases. Now, the argument that this is just the amount of testing. So right here, testing has doubled over the last month, going about 25,000 tests per day to almost 50,000. But the percentage of people testing positive has risen even more dramatically. A month ago, fewer than 5% of the tests came back positive on a daily average. Over the past week, the daily average exceeded 19%. About 10.7% on Saturday, 143,000 tests came up positive, with the average age of 38. Now, think about what they're saying. Like, yeah, you're testing more, but that shouldn't affect the percentage of people who are coming back positive. And what we're seeing is a percentage of people that are coming back positive that is going up. You also get Florida and their hospitals. So the health system ICU's capacity in Florida are currently running at about 85% to 90% capacity. It doesn't take much to tilt that over. He said the system could turn some progressive care units into ICU units if necessary. Hospitals in several counties have stopped doing elective surgery. HCA West Florida have ceased inpatient elective procedures at hospitals in Hillsborough, Pinella, and 6 other counties, and an HCA spokeswoman on Sunday, Florida ceased elective surgery statewide from March until early May in order to free up beds and to receive personal protective equipment and healthcare workers caring for the COVID-19 patients. 42% of the 7,542 people in the hospital statewide are there for the COVID-19 virus. I probably should just said that part. Look, other states are hitting capacity in regards to their ICUs and what they can take on. Florida is trying to make provisions for what they can do in order to expand the number of people who are being put in their hospitals, or for that matter, put in their ICUs. Understand, if you tested everybody in Florida tomorrow, that would in no way affect the amount of people who go into the hospital. People go into the hospital because they're ill. They go into the ICU because they're on the brink of death. And they're not doing this just to piss off Donald Trump or to make some political statement. They're doing so because they're actually sick, and that is independent of whether they test positive or negative. You can have a negative test of a person, and that person ends up still getting ill and still being put into the hospital. The test matters less in that case. This is a false narrative to try to say that the reason has to do with the tests. Now, alpha male DeSantis, that was so proud of the proclamations. You guys said I was going to be worse than New York, and nobody says, oh, you're worse than New York now. You're worse than New York. How does he explain that? What do you say about that, DeSantis? You're a big alpha male who was screaming into the wind about the proclamations that Florida got it right. Florida did the right thing in what Florida was doing. Doesn't look like it, buddy. Let's see you eat some crow.
So I keep reading the Florida. Now, we do have a dramatic increase in cases in Florida. Okay. But it's happening among younger people. Give us the percentages. Tell us what's going on in the ground. Tell us what the death rate is. Tell us about the hospitalizations. And tell us what Florida's doing about it.
Well, we have no doubt seen a major increase in cases. The median age of our new cases was in the 50s about a month and a half ago. Now that's dropped into the 30s. We've had days where the median age was 33. And obviously that's important, Sean, as you know. I mean, because people who are healthy and under 40, the death rate on this thing is very close to zero. So that's significant.
Just notice right off the bat, difference in cadence, difference in persona, contrite, standing behind the flag, trying to explain. And the very fact that he's here explaining at all, as opposed to just yelling at the press in the way that he was doing prior, says something has changed. Well, something has changed in the fact that he's on Safe Space, Sean Hannity, to try to explain why his state is spiking and the number of COVID-19 cases in the way that it is spiking. Sean Hannity is not going to ask him any hard questions in this interview. It's almost the very fact that the interview is taking place at all is the fact that he is eating crow. Sean Hannity should ask, why is your state spiking in the number of cases that your state has? On top of why is it spiking, is there anything that you guys have done wrong in the way that you've gone about your affairs that has caused the increase in this spiking? Why is it spiking in your state, but not necessarily in New York? There are several questions that you should ask him, all of which are being critical because all of which are directly related to the way he's gone about governing that state and the priorities that he set for that state. Hey, here's a question. Is it possible that your priorities in regards to opening up the economy contributed to the fact that all of these people are now ill? Safe Space Sean Hannity will never ask those questions. Let's hear a little bit more.
Now, we are prepared for this. Now, we are seeing, particularly in places like Miami, you're seeing increased traffic in the hospitals. But it's interesting, I was down there today, and they said that they're actually seeing fewer hospitalizations from people in nursing homes, which is obviously a good sign because that's where the number one risk of mortality is. And what we've...
So now, Sean Hannity has basically allowed him to jump immediately
done
to nursing homes. Immediately to nursing homes. Now, he wants to talk about how he's gotten the death rate down in regards to nursing homes. Fair enough. But whether you got the death rate down in nursing homes is almost secondary to the fact that you have a lot more people that are actually showing that they have been infected. And a lot more people who are going to your hospitals and a lot more people who are going to your ICUs. Those are not, again, artifacts of the tests. Those are artifacts of a society that is ill, that needs health care, and that is going to hospitals to receive that health care. All of which to keep them, of course, alive. DeSantis will not answer any critical questions in this interview because no critical questions were asked. Sean Hannity basically just gave him a space in which to explain why he has failed so utterly and miserably, outright, entirely as a governor, explicitly in this particular issue, when other states were able to get it under control. And again, is it possible that your priorities in regards to the way that you've governed this state has contributed to this? In fact, Sean Hannity should have played this video to him and asked him, does he have any apologizing to do?
And part of the reason is that because you got a lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened. So we've succeeded, and I think that people just don't want to recognize it because it challenges their narrative.
That's not success. Just because something didn't happen in the immediate time frame to which people were prognosticating that it may happen, this wasn't necessarily an act of God, unless you want to just call God action and consequence, or the expectation of a consequence, or the consequence itself based on an action that was taken. Your action was to prioritize the economy. The public itself was against Trump on this, and against you on this, in wanting the priority to be around the disease and the getting rid of the illness itself. In doing so, you took certain actions that basically expanded and increased the likelihood of that virus spreading, using the very fact that the consequences of your actions hasn't necessarily materialized yet as some kind of chest-thumping justification of your correctness. Well, that has been shown to be fraught with all sorts of problems, considering Florida has just shattered the record for the number of cases, and your hospitals are indeed filling up. Ron DeSantis, in this video, trying to explain, can't necessarily explain that, because he is never really asked to do so. Safe Space Sean Hannity and DeSantis trying to explain away what is basically deaths that are coming to Florida. I mean, consider for the moment the number of people, when people get this disease, they were saying that within 2 months people are still having symptoms from the illness itself. Some of the things we're talking about, cognitive functions and brain functions being altered or adversely impacted in some kind of way. Like, this virus seems to have all sorts of neurological symptoms that go along with having the virus in and of itself, meaning if the goal is to prevent that, then you need to prevent people from transmitting that virus in and of itself, which means your priority needs to be with that, not necessarily with the economy. The economy is not a real thing. Those human beings are. Your society needs to be able to accommodate the fact that shit like this happens from time to time. And if it can't, maybe you need to have a rethink in regards to the way your society is organized and arranged. DeSantis, however, has abysmally failed by any metric in regards to Florida and the COVID-19, especially if life and limb is any notion of a priority at all in regards to some kind of evaluation of success. He has utterly, entirely, abysmally, from a cosmic God perspective, completely failed at his job as governor. If there is any philosophical responsibility of life and limb, he damn sure did not fulfill that obligation. Like, share, subscribe.